Good evening and welcome back to another video reading along the Empath's Survival Guide by Judith Orloff MD. Last video we started talking about the action steps for parents as far as achieving balance and reducing sensory overload, because the chapter that we are currently on is focusing on being an empath as a parent and parenting empathic children and all that implies for both. So we left off talking about the 12 action steps for parents to achieve balance and reduce sensory overload. I read the first 6 and I will read the last. Some of them are a little bit longer, so I like to break that up because sensory overload and also I think information overload might be something that some empaths can't tolerate, or I think people in general, but we get used to it. So let's just break it down and, little bits at a time. So number 7, set boundaries. Strive to set clear boundaries and enforce them. There is probably no harder place to set limits than with your children, but it's healthy to say no to unreasonable requests and bad behavior. I've seen that it's hard for some of my empath patients to set boundaries. They are overvigilant caretakers, constantly meeting their children's demands even when they're inappropriate. It's often difficult for empaths to tolerate their children crying because the emotions pierce right through their own bodies. However, it's the sign of a capable parent to say, I know you want to chat with your friends on social media, but you can only go online after you finish your homework. Or maybe this scenario is one like this. I understand that you want that glazed donut, but it's not healthy for you. If you don't stop crying, we're going to have to leave the store right now. Then be prepared to abandon your shopping cart and exit. To become socialized, kids need boundaries. No one ever gets everything they want, and children must learn to deal with frustration. Otherwise, they will become demanding and self-centered. When parents set reasonable and clear boundaries and enforce them, the home is much calmer, which also creates a tranquil environment for the empaths. Everyone knows their limits and what's expected of them. Without boundaries, there's chaos. Number 8, don't be a helicopter parent. And I am so sorry. My son is being loud in the background, and you might even hear my daughter on the phone, so I apologize for that. So number 8, don't be a helicopter parent. Empath parents are highly intuitive and pick up on what their children are feeling and thinking, often to an extreme. You might hear my son is upset, but I know he's just playing a game, so I'm not going to let myself get upset about that. As a result, they can become overly anxious, and so they hover and micromanage. This doesn't serve the kids, though. It can make them anxious and resentful, too. Use your intuition, but be mindful of smothering your children with constant concerns. Letting go more will reduce your stress level. Also, beware of invading your children's emotional space when they're upset. It's hard to see your children deal with pain without interfering, but it's important to give them some time to process their feelings. Identify which emotions belong to you and be responsible for them while allowing your children to identify their own feelings. This way, you will also let them work things out in their own way as they learn their own lessons. This doesn't mean that you won't be there to guide them, but it will stop you from smothering them and jumping in too quickly to fix their problems. Number 9, center your own energy. Your energy affects your children's energy, so being mindful of how you express emotions is stabilizing for your kids. Acting out of frustration when you're in a bad mood will only leave them upset and confused. An empath mom who is single told me that her kids were always in after-school programs because of her heavy workload. She noticed that whenever she had a bad day at work, the kids would start whining and acting out in the car as soon as she picked them up. She gradually figured out that it was her energy that was the source of their crankiness. They were absorbing and reacting to her anxious state. So she made it a point to stop thinking about work as soon as she left her job and instead plan a fun evening with the kids. Her children responded well to this shift. Her gentle and playful energy had a tranquil effect on them. I don't think you even have to go as far as planning a whole fun evening with your kids, but just being able to let go and stay right where you're at and being mindful of the fact that your energy affects their mood and their energy, and just being more playful with them, I would think probably would be a more realistic approach rather than every single day you get in the car and you go somewhere and have a fun evening. That would be so wonderful to be able to do that every single night. And maybe it is for you, but being realistic, a lot of parents can't do that. So you have to find, I think, something that fits for everybody, that there's still the playfulness in there. There's still the, being mindful of your energy and what you're putting out to your children, because it affects everybody, Number 10, watch what you eat. Empaths are prone to hypoglycemia. We often benefit from frequent small protein meals to stay grounded and to maintain steady energy. Skipping meals makes us more susceptible to exhaustion, anxiety, and sensory overload. Avoid sugar binges, which cause mood swings and frustrated behavior with your kids and partner. Try to eat healthy and clean foods to keep you balanced and energized. Minimize your alcohol intake too. Some empath parents turn to alcohol or other substances, such as anti-anxiety medications, or I think they used to be called mother's little helpers, how she's also referring to them, to make it through a stressful day with their kids. Don't fall into this trap. Number 11, decompress through exercise. Movement melts stress and relaxes us. It gets our endorphins, the body's natural painkillers, flowing and decreases stress hormones. Yoga, stretching, walking, and hiking are all wonderful ways to reduce stress and sensory overload. If your partner is amenable, try alternating workout nights so that each of you gets an opportunity to exercise. And number 12, have fun with your kids. Remember what precious beings of light your children are rather than dwelling on annoyances. Focus on the privilege of parenting them. The laughter of happy children is healing. Let your empath self release stress by joining them in their joy. Throughout the extraordinary experience of child rearing, remember to be compassionate with yourself. Accept that you can't do everything. Even without children, empaths are overstimulated by too much people contact. As much as you might want to say yes to certain social requests, at times it's more self-preserving to decline activities that are not a priority. I've seen empath mom and dads burn out when they didn't say no. The beauty of parenting is that it can train you to practice self-compassion by expressing your needs, such as, I need to rest, or I need to take a walk to decompress. When you learn to value self-care, the experience of parenting will be even more magnificent. That makes better sense. Raising sensitive children. So now we're going to start talking about not the empath parent, but the child that's an empath, and perhaps having an empath parent as well. Children who are empaths or highly sensitive have nervous systems that react more quickly and strongly to external stimuli. Sometimes they feel too much, but they don't know how to manage the sensory overload. They see more, hear more, smell more, intuit more, and experience emotions more intensely. For instance, they may not like strong food smells in the kitchen, perfumes, loud talking, or harsh bright lights, particularly fluorescent bulbs. They prefer soft, not scratchy clothes, beauty, nature, and having one or a few close friends, rather than many acquaintances. Our coarse world can assault their sensitivities, and this affects their behavior. Since most sensitive children can't articulate the cause of their upset, enlightened parents need both to help them identify triggers and to offer solutions for their distress, which I'll share below, she says. Parents need to know what overstimulates their sensitive children. It will mean avoiding some activities. Doing so will calm these children and ward off exhaustion, tantrums, and anxiety. Common triggers include excessive busyness, such as overscheduling their day and leaving no time for breaks, multitasking, no alone time, video games, and watching violent television programs and newscasts, especially at night. Children who experience any of these scenarios might find it harder to fall asleep and require more downtime before bed to unwind. Sensitive children may take longer than other kids to calm down at night because their systems are slower to transition from stimulation to quiet. Also, these children can feel and absorb other people's emotional discomfort, especially from parents and close friends. Because they are super responders, their hurts cut deep and their joys are extra joyful. Children who are empaths or have high sensitivity don't have the same mechanisms as other children to screen out light, noise, and the chaos of the crowds. For example, the high stimulation of a sports event can feel overwhelming. Cheering, clapping, and booing can feel jarring, even painful to them. They also don't respond well to loud music, honking and hammering, or noisy power tools. These sounds agitate them, while the peaceful sounds of birds chirping, gentle wind chimes, and water all soothe them. Highly empathic children may cry more and cope by retreating into solitude to self-regulate sensory overload. Typically, schools and the rest of society don't give these exceptional children much understanding. Conventional physicians and teachers often label them shy, antisocial, or fussy, or else they're diagnosed with social phobia, an anxiety disorder, or depression. Because they may be quieter, more thoughtful, deep, and gentle, rather than extremely verbal or assertive, others can perceive them as withdrawn. In view of these misconceptions, the parent's role is critical in supporting their sensitivities, intuition, creativity, wisdom, and in teaching them tools to cope with the world. As a child who was an empath, I received no support from my physician parents for my sensitivities. It wasn't because they didn't love me, they simply didn't know what an empath was or how to understand my special needs. They wanted me to be happy, but they didn't think encouraging my sensitivities would lead me there. They called me overly sensitive and said that I needed a thicker skin. These well-intended comments made me believe there was something wrong with me. Because I felt misunderstood and invisible as an empath child, I have become especially passionate about educating parents about their sensitive children. Knowing that your child is an empath or highly sensitive is the first step toward bringing out the best in them. Then you can support their sensitivities as an expression of their excellence, compassion, and depth. To determine if your child is an empath, take the following assessment. All right. So I know we tend to be biased when it comes to our children, for any parents out there, but really think about these things when you ask yourself this on behalf of your child, or if your child is old enough, you can certainly ask them these questions and have them think on it for just a second, because, you know, it would be nice to really get the most accurate, really and truly, if you can. Okay. Does your child feel things deeply? Do people, crowds, noise, or stress overstimulate your child? Does your child have strong reactions to sad or frightening scenes in books or movies? Does your child want to escape and hide from family gatherings because there's too much going on? Does your child feel different from other kids or complain about not fitting in? Is your child a good listener and compassionate? Does your child surprise you with intuitive comments about others or yourself? Does your child have a strong connection to nature, to plants and animals, or even stuffed animals? Does your child require a lot of time alone rather than playing with other kids? Does your child take on a friend's stress or upset? Does your child take on your own or other people's emotions or stress and act out when you're angry, upset, or depressed? Does your child have one best friend or a few good friends rather than a large social network? Here's how to score this assessment. 10 to 12 yeses indicate a child with extremely strong empath traits. 7 to 9 yeses indicate strong empath traits. 4 to 6 yeses indicate moderate empath traits. 1 to 3 yeses indicate some empath traits. And of course, 0 indicates a child who's not an empath. That's, I think, very obvious. No matter where your child is on this spectrum, all children can benefit from being taught to honor their particular sensitivities. So at the end of the day, you know, it doesn't matter if your child hits no. They all of their sensitivities, all of their aspects of them should be honored and recognized. And I think people forget that, you know, children are people too. They are here to teach us. We are here to learn from them and vice versa. And I think sometimes, a lot of times, grown-ups discount, you know, what comes out of their mouths and tend to not believe them, or just kind of, you know, just not even listen. And I think that we should all be more mindful of that with our children and any child we encounter. Okay, so she's going to talk about something that maybe not all people might agree with, but this is what she also put here in the book, or they may not know anything about this. Actually, I think that might be it. But if you're pulled to this type of book, you might be familiar with this, with the term I'll use here, the new generation of indigo children. So that's the term I'm talking about, and that's what this section is about here next. In the last decade, much has been said about indigo children, who I believe are a type of empath with strikingly developed intuitive abilities and insight into people and world situations. They are the opposite of the self-absorbed instant gratification generation that have a large presence in our culture today. Indigos are a great new wave of children with more awakened intuition, sensitivities, clarity of purpose, and interest in changing the planet for the good. They're often described as old souls who have a profound grasp of the human condition. Some say they have lived many lifetimes to attain that knowledge. A patient described her 17-year-old daughter, Anna, as an indigo child. She told me that Anna had prophetic dreams, drew angels in her coloring books since she was very young, and saw spirit visitors in their home. She could also read people intuitively and know what they were feeling. At 17, Anna wants to go into a profession that will help stop global warming, a phenomenon that hurts her soul because, as she says, I feel the pain of how the climate change is threatening our Earth. I think a lot of people do, but they don't even realize it. Indigo children have unique needs that require parents and teachers to become aware of how they treat them. Being sensitive to their gifts will help these children avoid frustration and achieve balance in their lives. Indigo children bring the promise of a higher collective consciousness and a new way of perceiving what happens politically, socially, and economically. As empaths, they bring the possibility for a world with more mutual understanding and harmony in both our personal and global relationships. If you have such an exceptional child, nurture their special gifts. Okay, I'm going to read one more section. This one is titled Special Challenges for Sensitive Boys. Boys who are empaths sometimes have it harder than girls because of shaming cultural stereotypes such as boys don't cry. Sensitive boys are often humiliated for their gentleness and compassion and they are told to man up. They grow up ashamed of who they are. They may cry more as children to cope with being overwhelmed or when they sense other people's pain. Sometimes they shed tears of joy when they're happy or are touched by the tenderness of life. They tend to dislike the adrenaline rush and noise of violent action films or video games, and they avoid heavy contact sports like football or boxing where risk and potential injury are involved. As a result, they might not be invited to participate in many activities with their friends. Sensitive boys are hurt by this rejection and feel as if they don't fit in. In Western culture, boys are often reinforced for risky behavior, but boys who are empaths aren't usually risk takers. They prefer safer and more predictable outcomes. Since they're intuitively aware of danger signals, they may be more cautious, which can be misinterpreted as being a wimp. Parents with sensitive sons need to help them accept their gifts of sensitivity, while keeping the cultural stereotypes associated with gentleness in men in perspective. For instance, sensitive men may be viewed as feminine, too soft, or unmanly. In the old John Wayne tough guy paradigm of masculinity, men are strong and silent, and they don't express pain, fear, or tears, lest they be considered weak. In the new enlightened paradigm, men are considered strong when they can be vulnerable, gentle, and secure enough to show tears. This doesn't mean that they are over-feminized, but that they have learned to embrace both their masculine and feminine sides to become a whole person, which we certainly all have the masculine, feminine, and that's what makes us complete, just like it says, just like she says. I guess I agree with that. Now I lost my place. I urge you to talk with your son about the positive aspects of being sensitive, how he's thoughtful, smart, caring, creative, intuitive, and attuned to people and nature. When your son knows you support him, it builds his self-esteem. Sadly, some sensitive boys rebel by trying to be someone they are not, or they get involved with alcohol or other addictions to numb their intense empathy so they can fit in with their peers. They may become angry at being shamed, rejected, or bullied by other boys and act out at home or at school. One mother told me, "My sensitive son was bullied at school. He broke down saying he doesn't trust people. He's afraid to leave the house because of the bullying, and he doesn't want to get hurt again." It's important to discuss bullying with your son by validating his feelings. Tell him that he isn't to blame. The bully is the one with the emotional problems, not him. Never tolerate anyone shaming your son when he expresses sensitive behavior. Stand up for him, involve the school authorities, and send the message that there is zero tolerance for bullying. Sensitive fathers are fantastic role models for their sons. Fathers who are proud to be loving and sensitive, even if they're not empaths, send the right message to their boys. Good fathers are strong and sensitive men who have good hearts and aren't afraid to express their feelings to their families. As a parent, your role model goes a long way by showing your son how to be a well-balanced man and lead a loving life. Or I'm sorry, your role modeling goes a long way. Okay, so we are going to stop right there and continue in our next video talking about parenting and raising sensitive children as empaths, or if they are empathic. We will pick up on talking about the magic and stress of pregnancy and infancy. So I think she'll be talking about, are you born with empathy? Is it developed? What happens? Is there something that goes on in the womb? And then we'll go over a meditation for mothers and the effects of early trauma on an adult's sensitivity. And there's going to be 20 tips for nurturing empathic children. So this chapter seems a little bit longer, but I think that's understandable because I think that there's just a lot more to give as far as advice and information when talking about being an empathic parent or raising an empathic child, because that can profoundly change, dynamics at home if you understand that much more what's going on with yourself or your child. So we will pick up there next time. And thank you again for joining me again before I go to bed, so we can read together and learn together reading this wonderful book. So I will see you on the next video. And if you like what you're seeing and you're watching these videos, please like and comment. I would really love to hear from anybody that is watching these videos what they think. So until next time, take care. Have a beautiful morning, afternoon, and night. Bye-bye.